Genesis, Behind the Story. Episode 11. Jacob Escapes from Laban. Based on Genesis 31, 1-55, Welcome Back to Stories. By Anna. What if I told you that after 20 years of hard work, Jacob left in secret? Not because he wanted adventure, not because he wanted more money, but because staying had become dangerous. For 20 years, Jacob had worked for Laban. 20 years. He had married Leah and Rachel. He had raised children. He had built flocks. And through God's blessing, he had become very wealthy. But things were changing. Laban's sons were becoming jealous. Laban's attitude was no longer friendly. And then God spoke. The Lord told Jacob, "Return to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you." There was no doubt. It was time to go home. Jacob called Rachel and Leah into the field where the flocks were grazing. There he explained everything. He reminded them how hard he had worked for their father, how Laban had repeatedly changed his wages, how God had protected him through every challenge. Then he shared God's command. They were to leave. Rachel and Leah surprised Jacob. Instead of defending their father, they agreed with him. They believed Laban had treated them unfairly. Together they made a decision. They would leave, but they wouldn't tell Laban. While Laban was away shearing sheep, Jacob gathered his family, his wives, his children, his servants, his flocks, his possessions. Then they quietly departed, heading toward the land of Canaan, heading home. For several days everything seemed fine, but eventually Laban discovered what had happened. Jacob was gone. The family was gone. The flocks were gone. Laban was furious. He gathered his relatives and pursued Jacob. For 7 days he chased him through the countryside. Can you imagine the tension? Jacob knew Laban was coming. Laban knew Jacob had fled. A confrontation seemed inevitable. But before Laban caught up to Jacob, something remarkable happened. God intervened. The Bible tells us that God appeared to Laban in a dream. The Lord warned him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." Even Laban could not ignore a warning from God. Eventually, Laban caught up with Jacob, and the confrontation began. Laban accused Jacob of leaving secretly. He accused him of taking away his daughters. And he accused someone in Jacob's camp of stealing his household idols. Jacob defended himself. He explained why he had left. He reminded Laban of 20 years of faithful service, 20 years of hard work, 20 years of enduring unfair treatment. As emotions rose, the truth finally came out. Both men had grievances. Both men felt wronged, but neither wanted war. So they made a covenant. Together they built a stone monument, a visible reminder of their agreement. Laban and Jacob promised not to harm one another. The next morning, Laban kissed his daughters and grandchildren goodbye. Then he returned home, and Jacob continued his journey. At last, the chapter with Laban was over, but another challenge lay ahead, a much bigger challenge, because the brother Jacob had fled from 20 years earlier was still waiting. Esau, and Jacob had no idea how their reunion would go. Would Esau forgive him, or would the past finally catch up with him? We'll discover what happened in episode 12. Jacob prepares to meet Esau. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to Stories by Anna. And here's a question for you. Have you ever had to face someone after years of avoiding a difficult situation? Let me know in the comments below. God bless, and I'll see you in the next story.